Welcome to the virtual meeting of Thetford Town Council, our full council for September. Hope you all enjoyed the sunny weather that we've had. Obviously, it's a big change from that. And as is normal, before we actually go into the body of our agenda tonight, we always open with a 15-minute public forum for questions. Joe, can you open? Is the live stream open? And do we have any questions? With a 15-minute public forum for questions. Okay. Well, just while we're waiting to see if any questions come forward, I would just like to make a comment ahead of tonight. And colleagues, you'll all be aware that our Minute Secretary Chris is not able to be with us this evening due to the recent passing of his much-loved wife Carol. And I'm sure all members of the council join me in sending our heartfelt condolences to Chris and our support at the most difficult of times. Yeah. Joe, is there anybody else that's come forward with a question from the public? Okay, well then, in that case, rather than leaving councillors, public and officers hanging in virtual limbo, I shall crack on with the main body of the meeting. So our first item of the evening is 319/20, and that's declaration of any disposable pecuniary interest. And I'm happy to, as normal, to take those at this point or as we arrive at an item. Do we have any disposable pecuniary interest, colleagues? Well, silence is golden, so we're moving swiftly on. Colleagues, as I said to you just before we come into the meeting, if you can put your hands up in the chat or hands up on the screen, that'd be most appreciated to manage the meeting. And I'm sure Tina, our clerk, and Joe's facilitating me will help me get to you in the relevant order. Our item 320/20 is apologies for absence. Do we have any to receive?
No, there's been none received, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Well, that brings us on to item 321/20, which is the minute, and that's to confirm the minutes of the full council meeting on the 30th of June. So I shall move to those.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, that's a mistake. It should have been the 28th of July. I've just noticed that.
Thank you, team. Because what you won't have heard is the mild panic when I thought I haven't got the papers in front of me. So, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, and page 5. Move the minutes. Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed.
That moves us swiftly on to item 322/20, and this is to receive the committee reports in the which we have an absolute plethora of. So we're on to full council, which we've done, thankfully. The first one is to a special meeting that was held on the 30th of July, and we go to Councillor Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I've got 3 sets of amenities minutes for you this evening, I'm afraid, but the first ones are from the meeting on the 30th of July. There is one recommendation, but it's already been dealt with by a special full council, so there's no other recommendations, but just move the minutes, please.
All agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Moving swiftly on,
Agreed.
we have the special full council of the 5th of August. And that's that does have a recommendation on page 2, and I believe this is already been addressed. Am I correct in that, Tina?
Yes, it's a resolved. It is the recommendation that was put forward from ALP.
Thank you very much. So page 1, page 2, to move the minutes.
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you. We are moving swiftly on. We now move on to the Civic Committee, which met on the 6th of August, and I hand over to Councillor James.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too am presenting a hat trick this evening, so I do apologise. So I beg leave to present the minutes of the virtual committee, civic committee held on Thursday, the 6th of August. There are no recommendations. I'll just go through page 1 as presented and page 2. May I ask to move the minutes?
All
Move
agree?
the minute.
Thank you, colleagues.
Agreed.
Next meeting, I have planning, the 11th of August. Councillor Brindle.
I'm struggling because I'm behind you. I've got on screen Finance Committee.
We're looking for the minutes, Mike, of your planning committee, the 11th of August.
Yes, I'm hoping that it will come up. But if we're looking at 227, there was a recommendation, as you can see, at 227 that Thetford Town Council adopt the Town Council's policy on planning issues. And
Mike,
it was
Mike,
an amendment.
Mike, if you're struggling with getting the document, I've got a paper copy in front of me. Would you like me to just take the members through the pages?
I think that would be extremely helpful.
Okay, so
I apologise to you, Mr. Mayor, that I haven't got a paper copy.
not at all, not at all. Page 1. On page 2, there is a recommendation that Thetford Town Council adopt the Town Council's policy on planning issues. See Appendix A, attached with amendments highlighted in blue. We all agreed on that?
Agreed.
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 It'd probably be best if we put something up in the chat, actually, so we can see that, because I only heard 3 voices, and I would like to take that as being a majority view of council. So you can just put agreed, thank you, that'd be really useful.
So we've had one from Chris Harvey, Jane James, Terry Jeremy, Dave Hodgkinson. Oh, just waiting for them all to clear off my screen. From Jenny Hollis, Stuart Wright. So I think you've got your majority there, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, colleagues.
Brenda
And,
Canham, yeah.
thank you, colleagues. And page 3. I presume you don't want me to go through page of the appendices?
No. Of course, I'd love you to, because it's very interesting reading. But no, that's not necessary, Mr. Mayor.
Fantastic. Mike, are you happy for us to move the minutes?
I'd be very happy for the minutes to be moved, and if I may move them on your behalf.
Thank you very much. All agreed, colleagues?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Awesome.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. And that moves us back to the ALP committee, which met on the 12th of August. Back to you, Councillor Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, these are the minutes from the meeting on the 12th of August. There's no recommendations. It's all resolved business. So just move the minutes, please.
All agreed?
Agreed.
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 Thank you. And we're back to the Chair of Finance for a committee on the 18th of August. Back to Councillor James.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I beg leave to present the confirmed minutes of the finance meeting held Tuesday, the 18th of August. There is one recommendation. By your leave, I'll take councillors through page by page. So we have page 1 and page 2, where there is the recommendation as highlighted in red on your screens presently, that Thetford Town Council adopt the schedule of payments made. See Appendix A.
Thank you. Again, if you agree, can you put that comment into the chat box, please?
So I have councillors Harvey, Jeremy, and James. Councillor Hodgkinson. Councillor Braham. Councillor Canham. and Councillor Hollis, Councillor Brindle, Councillor Wright. I feel the need to shout full house, like a bingo caller, but I think you find that everybody's in full agreement, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll continue there on page 2. I won't go through the appendices, but by your leave and with your indulgence, Mr. Mayor, I would like to highlight the resolved item at 25420 that the Town Council has actually adopted a green electricity supplier, which is in line with our environmental strategy. And I just wanted to celebrate that. We'll move on to page 3. I will not go through the continuing appendices, and may we move the minutes, please?
All agreed?
Agreed.
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 Agreed. Members may be surprised that we're back to Councillor Jeremy again on the 9th of September for the Albert Committee.
I would like to point out, Mr. Mayor, that this is 2 months' worth of minutes, not just 1 month. Just to be clear, we've not been having 101 meetings in a month, but these are the minutes from the 9th of September. Again, there's no recommendations, it's all resolved business, so just happy to propose the minutes, please.
All agreed?
Move the minutes.
Agreed.
Fantastic. Okay, Councillor Brindle, we're back to you for your planning committee on the 15th of September.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may present those draft minutes, there are, as you will see on your screen, no recommendations. I would just like to draw everyone's attention to the fact that there was discussion of the government planning white paper, and it's still possible just about for individuals to forward their own views to the government should they wish to do so. I think I'm resting my case to some extent on Breckland, which has put forward a very thorough recommendation, which generally speaking points out the concerns felt by Breckland councillors for this change in the rules, which will make planning apparently much easier for those who wish to go ahead with large developments. As I say, if you want to put your own recommendation forward to the government, you have, I think, a couple of days left to do so, and the planning committee felt that was the best way forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if I may, therefore, go through the pages. Not that I'm seeing them, so I'm guessing I think we've got 3 pages. Are there any comments or improvements or corrections from colleagues, please, on the planning committee of the 15th of September?
No, thank you.
I think silence is golden, Mike. Would you like to...
I think we'll take that as a clear majority. It was certainly a clear voice. May I ask you to adopt the minutes of this planning committee of the 15th, please?
Thank you. All agreed?
Pass the minutes. Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mike. And that moves us on to our then committee that was held on the 16th of September. It's myself to present. This is simple, page 1, page 3, and page 2. There are no recommendations, colleagues. Can I move the minutes?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. We're now over to our Personnel Committee, which was held on the 22nd of September. I hand over to Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to propose the minutes of the virtual meeting held on Tuesday the 22nd of September. As you can see on the screen, there is one recommendation that full council agreed to the new committee structure.
Could I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Of course. Councillor Jeremy?
Thank you. Yes, I can see the recommendation on screen there, Councillor Brown, but I wonder, Town Clerk, could you tell us where the minutes for both personnel and finance are? I looked on the Teams link with all the other minutes and I couldn't see it. I could see that them came to us as a separate one, but I don't seem to have received personnel or finance, both from the 22nd of September. I don't know if anyone else is in the same boat, but I certainly haven't read either of those minutes.
I can only apologise for that, Terry. I have been spending more time in Bury Hospital than I have at home, and I didn't respond to Tina half quick enough. I did get them eventually, and I did spend a late night and got them back to her, but I think I must accept responsibility for not getting them back soon enough.
No, I understand that, Roy, completely, absolutely. I can't vote to accept minutes that I haven't seen.
No.
I'm just having a look in the full council now because wait a minute, the VEM ones are in there. If you look in the channel for full council meetings, VEM ones are in there. And oh no, because I hadn't get them to put them back up. Yeah, the VEM ones are in there, so it's my apologies on the personnel ones, but I'm happy to take that forward until the next one because we did only have it like last week, so we tabled them anyway.
Is that a good way forward? I don't know if this is a problem just relating for Councillor Jeremy or other colleagues have had an issue accessing the minutes for this particular committee.
I don't know. As I say, I've got them sat in front of me, and I can have a word with the town clerk and get them sent out, and we'll do them at the next one because, as I say, it was only 3 or 4 days ago, and I can only apologise.
I've got two colleagues with hands up. I've got Dave Hodgkinson and Jane James. In that order, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question about I think we're probably not going to be asked to agree the new committee structure now because I think it's going to come back. But I've got the minutes in front of me, but I haven't actually got a copy or addendum on there showing the new committee structure. So I'm not quite sure where that is. Ah, here it's just appearing. Am I right in? Did I pick up correctly what we were saying that we're going to actually be looking at this next time? So we've got a bit of a chance to look at that.
I think that was my understanding. Always happy to be corrected.
I don't have any problem with that at all. So we're having that one was like we're having another one early. So we will just readdress that and bring it back to the next full council if that's okay with the town clerk.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Apologies, having some technical issues this evening. I do apologise, Mr. Mayor. With regards to the personnel structure, I believe it came out on the email dated the 15th of the 9th, which had the previous minutes meetings and the agenda issued on it. In terms of the finance, I apologise, Councillor Jerry. I think you are absolutely right. It would appear that the minutes from the 22nd of September have only been put into the finance teams group and not the full council one. So I do apologise. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Similarly to the personnel committee, would you be content for those, so all members of the council can view the minutes, for that to be held back to our next meeting?
There are actually 4 recommendations on those minutes. If you would indulge me one moment whilst I just double check them.
Okay, thank you.
So we have income and expenditure reports, which I can completely understand. Schedule of payments. There is the matter of the revised budget for the year, and that's bringing everything together from the committees. Realistically, as Councillor Jeremy correctly says, if we have not had this, if councillors have not had sight of this information previously, I believe it would be inappropriate to vote on it. It would be absolutely wrong. That does mean to say that the revised budget will not be adopted at this point or not adopted, but actually realistically it doesn't change any of the numbers, it just puts them in different places, if that makes sense.
Could I just say that the finance minutes are in the finance team? They're in the finance channel in full council.
Are they? Thank you.
Yeah,
Clark.
It was
Apologies.
in the conversation that was sent. It's got the 2 sets of minutes were sent out together.
Okay, so they have been circulated. At risk of nitpicking, and I imagine Councillor Germany would probably observe this himself when he looks at that finance, it does say 09/29 today. I think that's rather an unfair assumption that us councillors have nothing else to do apart from wait for minutes to come out and read them as soon as they're released. So yes, Mr. Chairman, we have no other choice than to defer those recommendations till the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you to both the Chair of Personnel and the Chair of Finance for their engagement with that, and our clerk as well. So just for clarification to all, those last 2 set of committee minutes will come back to us at our next meeting. Thank you. That moves us on then, colleagues, to item 323/20, and that's the Mayor's remarks and reports. And I'll try and keep this as brief as possible because it's 2 months worth, but we are still in that period of lockdown. But the last couple of months, August, I can sort of sum up is being the month of past mayors. So I just pick out some highlights of the period. The 15th of August, I was privileged to lay a wreath on behalf of the council, marking the 75th anniversary of the VJ Day at the Far East Prisoners of War's tree down by Nuns Bridges, which was attended by many members of the council. And for those of you that are on social media, you will see that during the ceremony I was standing alongside former Mayor Robert Kybird, who's now the President of the British Legion. The 22nd of August was an event, probably the most local event I will attend. It was the unveiling of the Norwich Road Residents Association notice board. They're a particularly proactive and positive Residents Association, as they all are. And the board, quite rightly, was unveiled by Colin Arms, assisted by his wife, Sylvia, who again is both of them former mayors and mayoresses. And Colin was in suitable fine fettle to still pull my ear aside and point out a couple of issues that required attention. So he was in good fighting spirit. I was privileged on the 13th of September to give the second reading at St Cuthbert's Church as we marked the Battle of Britain. It was a remembrance service for the Battle of Britain, and the reading was from Ephesians chapter 6, 10 to 18, and it was called Put on the Armour of God. I won't go through it all again for you, you'll be pleased to hear, but it was a particular privilege to be part of that. I also had my second invitation of the day, and significantly, it was my first outside Thetford. And I was privileged to be invited to a fundraiser by the Mayor of Wisbech, Councillor Agar Balsavich. And it was a lovely event at Wisbech Castle. Got to view a first edition King James Bible and a tour of the castle and the vaults and its bats as well. I was particularly impressed with Agar because he came to this country in 2005, started his business. He now runs 3 pubs in the local area, and he's thrown himself into his community. The only other event I will mention to you guys is that on the 17th September, it was an honour for myself and the Mayoress to join Station Commander Group Captain Matthew Radnell at RAF Huntington, commemorating the Battle of Britain. And we heard 3 short stories about describing the bravery and the selfless dedication of servicemen that were in Huntington at the time of the Blitz and the Battle of Britain. One story that particularly stuck out was the story of Jimmy James, who was a survivor of the famous Great Escape, and has a hangar named after him. In fact, servicemen graduate from that very hangar. Jimmy had a very important role during the Great Escape. He actually was responsible for depositing soil from Tunnel Harry under seat 13 in the Camp Theatre. And an absolute highlight, and it did give me goosebumps, was the event concluded with the evocative sight. It was a solo Spitfire flypast. and a beautiful, unbelievable sight in our skies. That concludes my report, colleagues. I'm open to any questions or comments. Okay, I shall move on. So we're on to item 324/20, and that's Town Council representatives on other bodies. I would go around the table, but I can't see anybody. So Tina, would you be so kind to go around in alphabetical order, please?
Oh gosh, you're asking something now. Wait a minute, I'll pull up the part. It's probably if I go easier go through the participants list. Councillor Canham.
Thank you, Tina. Just a quick update. Mary from the Charles Bowell Museum, the steam engine, is having her new wheels put on at this present moment, and also all her engines are parked because they have to do the boiler test, so they're working on that as well. And that's it really. When we're going to open, I can't say. But yeah, that's it really. Thank you.
Okay, the next is Councillor Harvey, please.
No, nothing from me. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hodgkinson, please.
Nothing for me.
Councillor James, please.
Thank you, Clerk. As you're aware, I'm one of the two representatives from the Town Council on the Greater Thetford Partnership. They had their meeting on Tuesday, the 8th of September. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend, and Councillor Stuart Wright kindly took my place, so I'll give way to him. Thank you.
Councillor Hollis, please.
Nothing from me, thank you.
Councillor Brindle, please.
Thank you, Tina. Just to report, Mr. Mayor, on the AGM of the Charles Borough Centre, which was held recently, amongst other things, the retirement from the board of Elsie Coleman, who is an absolute one of the very first, perhaps she was the first person really to suggest we might create such a thing, which was picked up so well by Terry Jeremy and others. So a great loss, but it was a very successful, admittedly virtual meeting, and the Charles Borough Centre is doing its absolute utmost to stay as open as possible during these extraordinary times, and I think doing a good job. So good for Denise and I to be the representatives on that. Thank you.
Councillor Brain, please.
I'm not actually on any outside bodies, so nothing from me.
Councillor Wright, please.
Thank you. Yes, as Councillor James indicated, I acted as substitute on Greater Thetford Partnership. The guest speaker was a representative from Greater Anglia, which we questioned about the facilities and the what plans they have for Thetford Station and Thetford Service. I did question him further about the signal box and the lack of lift at the railway station. We understand that it's not in the current plans for the lift to be installed to allow access to both platforms. However, the bridge is destined to be refurbished to bring it up to the handrail and footway standards. So that was something a little positive to take from it. But again, it does seem that we are lacking a little bit more investment in Thetford as needed. I did actually take the Greater Thetford Partnership manager out for a walk subsequent to the meeting to open his eyes to a few things around Thetford, but talking with him, it was nice to know that others have also pointed out a number of issues that need dealing with. Other than that, there wasn't too much really to report. I'm sure other participants may take other things from it, but at least it's up and running, and the Greater Thetford Partnership manager is now getting his feet under the table. Thank you.
Councillor Jeremy, please.
Thank you, Town Clerk. I'm not an official rep on any outside bodies, so nothing to report.
Thank you. That's all the councillors present, apart from yourselves, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'm just going to follow on from Stuart's comments around the GTP meeting on the 8th. For colleagues, the next meeting scheduled for October the 15th to feed comments in. We also received an update from the GTP manager. I'm just, I do apologise, I'm catching up my papers here. The GTP manager explained that he produced a draft communication strategy that covered 3 main streams around the brand, the website and social media. He informed us that he's having a conversation with a branding company and the cost of the branding will be covered by Bretton Council. The other 2 pieces that I took from that, other than the update we received from Stuart Freer, the Greater Anglia Relationship Manager, was there was a rural community energy fund opportunity, and there was an opportunity to seek funding at a parish level that was support the rural community and the grid constraints. There were 2 phases of funding, phase 1 of up to 40k and phase 2 of up to 120,000. There would be no requirement to bid for the full amount should parishes wish to pursue the cost of the construction. The GTP manager said that especially the interest required at this stage, see that there could be a project that could be pursued for Bretton and Kilverston and the Croxton parishes. Thetford itself would not be eligible due to the size of the population. And the final item, which is a standing item, was progress on the Thetford Zoo. And we received an update from Chris Hobson, the Principal Planning Officer, and we informed that a plan application to provide the infrastructure for the substation had been approved at recent planning committee. I'm sure that's not new news to colleagues. And progress was underway with Hopkins Homes with the development of the first phase of the sewer, 343 dwellings. Discussions were underway with developers for phase 2 of 130 dwellings. And it was thought an application for outline permission will be presented to the planning authority by the end of the year. And that concludes my report. Thank you. So, if there's no
I'm sorry, could I just ask, please, that people send me copies of their reports? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, Tina, we now move on to items 325/20, and this is the report from county and district councillors. Should we do it in reverse all of this time?
Absolutely. Checking on my dexterity, Mr. Mayor. And so we will start with Councillor Jeremy, please.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Well, you'll be pleased to know, Mr. Mayor, the clerk prompted me in sufficient time that I was able to type my report out in advance and circulate to her this month. So that could be shared with members in due course. But just a couple of things I'd point out. I had a Norfolk County Council Corporate Select Committee meeting on the 14th of September. Most of us are allocated to 1, sometimes 2 of the main committees, but my one is Corporate Select Committee, which includes assets. And I've been making a bit of noise of late about streetlights and LED technology. We are still subject to part night lighting in Thetford, which means our streetlights go off, county ones anyway, at 11:30, sometime between 11:30 and 12 o'clock. Whereas upgrading them to LED is a much better service and saves more money. County, I'm really pleased actually, have invested 8.5 million in upgrading 15,000 streetlights across Norfolk, which will save £900,000 a year in running costs. So that's really good news, and I'm hoping some of our older lights in Thetford, which are county owned, will be upgraded as part of that. I'm not sure how the 15,000 across Norfolk will be split, but we have quite a lot of older ones in Thetford, which break regularly. So if we get some nice LED ones, hopefully they won't break as often. So that's really good news. The other thing is about the Borough Ward Community Litter Pick that we organised last week, 19th, as part of the Keep Britain Tidy. Thank you to people that attended that. I think we had about 20 in the end, which was good given COVID concerns and restrictions, but it was all socially distanced and good fun. It was good weather, unlike this week. There was also a Norfolk County Council meeting on the 21st of September. That was a full council meeting. I spoke in 2 debates, one about campaigns to support hungry children in Norfolk, and the other to vote against and speak against the further increasing of councillor allowances, which was approved. And there's a link on my report to my speeches as part of those debates. I also had a meeting with officers about the Croxton Road Shared Use Cycle Scheme, which has been delayed, no surprise. We were expecting that to start in September, but that's been delayed, primarily due to land ownership and county struggling to acquire some of the parcels of land needed for that to proceed. So I haven't got a revised date for you on that, but it has been delayed. And then on the note I circulated, there's a couple of sort of casework issues to note. One of them was about designated public place signage around the town. Lots of these little A4 size signs, which are very out of date. The legislation isn't relevant anymore. Some of the signs are completely faded and unreadable. So far, Breckland have removed 12 of those from Borough Ward. So if any members spot any in their own ward, there's quite a lot obviously on Castle around the town centre and sort of Cloverfield side of town. Make a list and I can share with you the contact at Breckland to get them removed. As part of my campaign to remove out of date and ugly signage and broken street furniture, we've also had 10 metal poles which have no signage on them. The signage just disappeared, but often they're rusty and sort of falling down. So we've in different locations we've had 10 poles removed, just tidying up the area. I'm really pleased to see the tree at the junction of Castle Lane and Castle Street cut back. I know that's a problem area. It's not specifically my county ward, but I do drive past it nearly every day and it was annoying me. So that's now been cut back, which is really good to see. But probably the report will be attached to the minutes or something like that. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Wright and Councillor Hollis both want to ask, who've got their hands up. So first of all, Stuart, then Jen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question for Terry, how we input into the possible replacement of streetlights. Norfolk has a great habit of doing things to us and then saying, oh, we didn't think it was a problem. The examples are obviously where Abbey Green lights were all replaced and we didn't have a chance of putting the heritage ones back there. But the one that springs to mind is the corner of Guildhall Street and Castle Street Central Hotel there, where we've got a lovely heritage lamp. And about 2 yards away is a massive modern street column. Now, if they're going to replace one, it probably doesn't need to replace it at that point. I do think it'd be nice to have a little local input into any things that are being replaced to look at opportunities to enhance the streetscape. Maybe you can bear us in mind, Terry.
Do you want me to come back on that, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
Yeah, no, thank you, Stuart. I think that's a really valid point in which why it's important we get early sight of where these 15,000 lights are. Some of them may be Thetford and some of them may still be the town centre. So if they are in the conservation area, we need to know. If you would be so kind, Stuart, as to maybe raise that amenities. Ros and I have been having some conversations about street furniture and both Breckland and Norfolk wanting to upgrade certain pieces to the standard sort of specification, and us having a conversation about what we as a town council can do to enhance that. But just give us a nudge, but completely agree.
Thank you.
Jenny?
Thank you. This is on street lights as well, Terry. Saying about the street lights, I know on the ladies' estate, the Ann Bartholomew ward, we have had some new street lights in there. But my other concern really is, like most wards, I should imagine, have got the same problem, is where the trees, the street lights are actually in amongst the trees. So you can't see the light because the trees have overtaken them. So that's another problem. We're getting a lot of dark areas where the lights are on, but the trees are covered. So really, I mean, I should have said that for a Breckland one, really, because the trees are Breckland, I believe. So is there any way that we can get the trees trimmed around where the lights are? Please.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. I think that's a really valid point. it reminds me of something I've been dealing with today, which is the sign along the London Road near Wilko, which is completely covered by a tree, and I've reported that twice now, and they tell me it's booked in to be cut back. It might be, Mark, something, Mr. Mayor, that you can pick up as a Breckland councillor for the Ladies Estate, or maybe Stuart Terry. If they're blocking the lights, they render the lights useless, frankly, and we don't have sufficient lighting as it is. So if there's something I can do, Jenny, as a county councillor, let me know. If you give me a list of specific areas, but if they're Breckland trees, I'll leave it down to the Breckland ward councillors to flag them with the relevant officers. I have been dealing with some on my district side of town, but as you say, most trees in public areas tend to be Brecklands.
Jenny, if you're happy to email that list to both myself and Terry, I'm sure between us we can actually work on the issue wherever it's.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I was mentioning it more on the county line. As I say, I should have mentioned it really for the Breckland line for the councillors for this side, but I know Terry's county councillor for this side. And as you say, some of the lights are county and some are Breckland. We don't know. My understanding about the tree situation is that they are Breckland, and they're quite out of control on the whole of this estate. So yeah, I mean, I don't really mind who takes them up. Would you like me to send you an email, Mr. Mayor, of where these trees are located?
Send it to both myself and Terry.
Yeah, that's okay. Fine. Yeah, that's fine. I can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got no more hands up, Terry, so I think you're done. Tina, who's our next report from, please?
The next report will be from Councillor Brain, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Town Clerk. Obviously, as everybody knows, they've been a little bit behind the ball this month. I did get a quick look at some emails today, and I'm pleased to say that the consultation about Thetford going 30 is about to start. Terry and I have been asked to promote anything that we think might need to be put on there, but it's good that it's actually going to public consultation, so that should happen sooner rather than later. On the Breckland side, I have seen that the Charles Burrell Museum, they've given the go-ahead to spend the rest of the money on getting the doors done. So that might look a little bit smarter down that end of town, which will be very pleasing, and I'm sure the STEAM people will be very pleased. Other than that, I haven't got a great deal to say because, as I say, basically I haven't really been doing that side of my job this week.
Okay. Thank you, Roy. Tina, who's our next person, please?
We have hands up from Stuart Wright and Jenny Hollis.
Oh, I do. Well, I've seen Stuart's gone up again. Stuart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question for Councillor Brain in terms of the Charles Burrell Museum. Does this mean that Breckland freed up their matched funding to enable that Historic England money to be drawn down to do the doors?
No, they haven't. That hasn't gone through as yet, as far as I understand. This was money that was agreed by Breckland some time ago when they had the first of the doors that were really badly damaged, needed a lot of work done to, and Breckland actually agreed that they could do them door on door on door, and they have left the money in abeyance so that the STEAM can draw on that. That was just a set job, set of money to do the doors.
Okay, can I just come back on that? Because I was under the impression there was the Burrell Museum were after Breckland to give their money for that match funding, which had enabled them all to be done. But as I understand, they've been contacted but haven't come back to say that they're going to free up their, I think it's about 5,000 of that magnitude. But it'd be disappointing if we can't get a go ahead if Breckland are not able to give that go ahead. But I would have thought for such a small sum, being able to free up such a large sum, it would be wise to do so.
As I understand it, that was what they said. All I saw today was a email from Steve James saying that he had no problem with the doors being done and that money would be freed up. So I assume that's what it is, but I will check and make sure that there isn't a chance of some more from somewhere.
Thank you.
Jenny?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Councillor Brain. Well done on this Thetford for 30. I know how hard you and Stag and Terry have worked for it. Can I just add a name to your list, please? And that's Pike Lane. I've got a lady that contacts me quite regular. She's one of our NHS nurses, and they're using Pike Lane as a bit of a racetrack at the moment. So she wondered if there could be something done about that. But as the Thetford for 30 for Thetford's coming, she seemed quite interested in that one. So can I relay that that could go on the list for an area or what? Thank you.
Yes, I mean, by all means, but to be honest, Pike Lane should already be 30 because that's in an in-town road. I will have a word with Highways and find out if there's the correct signage on there, and then we can have a look at doing it that way.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brain. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Roy, for that update. Who's next, Tina?
The next on my list is Councillor Brindle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Tina. Yes, 3 comments from Breckland meetings, please. The first is I was attempting to listen remotely to the planning committee recently. My understanding is that they voted unanimously to go ahead with the proposed closure of Nuns Bridges for 10 weeks in a year's time because of the electricity supply to the new houses. But what I couldn't hear was whether they'd put any conditions on. So I can only say, watch this space. Obviously, the minutes will come out in a week or so. That's the first point. Second, at the full council meeting, I asked a question about the river system in Thetford, really asking for support in difficult times. What I got was not really support, it was advice, but I just take the opportunity of drawing your attention, colleagues, to the state of the river at the moment. The breach has reopened, and I think there are more trees down in the river and needing attention from various riparians and other people responsible than I've ever seen in 30 odd years. So we do need to put more energy into the river and perhaps try to offer some leadership. So perhaps I can go through ALP to try and get that. And thirdly, this morning, Tina, the town clerk, and I, amongst others, attended the Market Towns Initiative virtual meeting. I'm not sure if the mayor was there. My apologies if I didn't say that you were. A lot of important initiatives, very practical initiatives on improving mainly town centres in the 5 Breckland market towns. And we really need to make sure that we don't miss any tricks there. Some of the other towns are smart in seeing where the money and sometimes the big money is. Swaffham has gained a grant very recently of £400,000. 400,000, that's not small money. So just to focus on the importance of the Market Town Initiative and on us being smart enough to not miss any tricks, particularly financial opportunities. There are a number of sensible small activities taking place, such as grant for startup businesses, the cycle racks, which you will have heard of, interactive boards, and so on and so forth, all designed to back up our market town centres. So it's something worth pursuing. Thanks.
Thank you. I have Councillor Hodgkinson and Wright with their hands up. So Dave, then Sturt, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I listened to the planning meeting last night, and I don't think there were any new conditions apart from ones that we'd already been told about night working and things like no night working. And but one thing they did mention was that that we wouldn't be able to have pedestrian access across the bridge, and it wouldn't even be able to be arranged when they're not working because they would have to be moving stuff and that would delay them too much. I think is more or less the gist of it. And the something else that you mentioned, Mike, about trees in the river and the breach. The BTO, I'm pleased to see, have been doing quite a lot of work clearing up some of the trees that are in the river. So that is being improved, but I mean, there's obviously more to be done. And I have witnessed some youngsters in the river near the breach when the weather was very warm, I must say, not doing it now, who were adjusting the large stones and moving things around. So I think that may have been an issue. But I understand that the river group have actually done a little bit of repair work there. So I think it was, when I saw it yesterday, it was looking reasonably good, but something we need to watch, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I just come back on that? The breach is certainly there today. So if something was done yesterday, it hasn't lasted, unfortunately. What we've got is a situation where there are bags on either side, and those are holding. But in the centre, there's no evidence of that. It's just loose stones, and they either need to be bagged in some way, as you would do with sandbags, or larger stones, heavier stones need to be used. So it does need dealing with, and I am concerned that we are really no nearer getting a permanent solution than we were. And briefly on the other issue that you mentioned, the pedestrian closure of Nuns Bridges was new to me at the meeting, and that's extremely disappointing. It doesn't sound as if they are able or feeling they want to try and assist Thetford cope with this closure. And I am concerned at one or two councillors who appeared in the meeting to be minimising the difficulty. I think we've got a really bad 10 weeks to look forward to. So keep working on those items. Thank you.
Stuart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following on for both those items, really, the breach, you know, I did suggest right at the outset that we put gabion cages with the stones in, and I did go down the day that we did the repairs, and there were some youth standing there hurling the stones into the river. I did take the time to explain the situation and why we were doing it, and well, they stopped doing it whilst I was there, and I'm sure they carried on whilst I left. We do need to probably have a little bit of information, possibly a sign down there to say why we're trying to block it up. But I do think we need a little bit more robust solution in the short term. And, you know, gabion cages filled with stones is inert, won't have anything damage to the river, but it will hold the stones in place, and it'll be a lot more difficult for them to be hurled in by individually. Nuns Bridge is again very disappointing that they won't try and help us out for the 10 weeks of hell that we're going to have. The local residents had put forward a suggestion that in the quiet period that they look to do some traffic calming measures in Nuns Bridge's Ford Street area. I know we've got this list that we're going to send to the contractors and hopefully they pay for it, but I am conscious that Norfolk County Council will be the gatekeeper on anything we want to do down there. So I'm just asking our Norfolk reps whether they can start pushing the buttons to see what traffic calming can be put in place, with the possibility of Balfour Beatty getting it done whilst it's closed. I think it's the ideal opportunity to try and improve the lives of people down there, to give something paying back after the hell we will have for 2 months down there. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. I'm sure our county colleagues picked that up and their feedback in accordingly. Tina, I suspect we're about halfway through your list of district and county reps at the moment. Who's our next individual to speak?
Our next Wrexham councillor is Councillor James.
Thank you.
Thank you. Couple of points to pick up. I completely share Councillor Jermyn's frustration regarding the out-of-date signage in the town centre, and I had been previously to the world that we find ourselves in at the moment, working through STAG and the district council to try and get these removed, and it's incredibly frustrating that they're still here. So perhaps Councillor Jeremy would do me the honour of tag teaming with me, and we'll get them in the pincer movement. The local plan working group has been put on pause pending the current white paper consultation, which I was part of. And at our Breckland Full Council meeting last week on the 24th, I thank the officers that have been dealing with the local fly tipping issues. There's been a number in the Castle Ward area, and I know specifically there's been quite a few that have raised significant interest in terms of the media locally on my fellow councillors' wards. And there's been some really, really good success stories and successful enforcements. And the nice thing is that the executive member for that particular area confirmed that the monies that are being raised from the receipts of these enforcements are being put back into education. There are letters going to be going out on specifically targeted areas, some posters, and they're also looking at increasing the staff side of things so that they can do more, educate more and enforce more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane. No one's put their hands up, so you've got away. Tina, who's the next speaker, please? Tina?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't unmute myself. I always do it at least once, don't I? I was just giving Councillor Harvey more time to gather his thoughts.
Thank you very much. It doesn't take long to gather my thoughts. Just to reiterate what Jane has said, after the hard work of local residents and ward councillors in Burrell, we had a really successful fly tipping prosecution at a really hot spot with 3 fines gone out. It's really good. We're going to keep working on that though. And also today, the Breckland have gone in and cleaned all the graffiti from the shelter in Pine Close. So, you know, kudos to Breckland when it did deserve, but we won't always be giving them praise. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. No other comments again. So Tina, we're on to, is anybody left to actually give a report?
Just yourself, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, well, I've got nothing to add to the comments that have been given by colleagues, so that they've been quite comprehensive in what they've covered. But I have received a report from Councillor Susan Dowling. As colleagues will know, she's the district, one of the district councillors for the Priory Ward. And I'm just going to read her report as she sent it to me. The last month has been busy with various activities, including delivering and organising distribution of activity packs for children. There are a few remaining packs which will be given to various charities in Thetford to distribute to families and children. She has been involved with telephoning vulnerable people. I've spoken to Councillor Dan throughout the pandemic. It's something she started in late spring, and she's been telephoning, involved with telephoning people who are self-isolating and receiving food parcels. And she highlights there's a great number of people who are still feeling isolated and lonely. And obviously this is something that continues as COVID-19 shows no signs of retreating in the following months. During the past week, she has been involved with supporting local applications for Breckland and match funded applications, including the Athena project and the Horticulture Industry Scheme in Thetford. And finally, she ends with, she's pleased to say that the spate of rat infestations in the area seem to have diminished and the rats have been dispersed or been dealt with. She received advice from Breckland that there is generally a peak of rat activity in the breeding season, which dies down as the weather cools. And that concludes the report that I received from Councillor Dowling. Councillors are more than happy to ask questions on that, but I fear I might not be the best place to give you any answers. Right, we're on to item 326/20, which is internal communications. This is a request from Councillor Hodgkinson to have this item on the agenda. And actually, before we go into it, I would just like to mention very keenly the agenda is driven by you, my colleagues, and Tina and I normally try and get the agenda out to you at least a week before full council with the associated papers. So there's a timeline to actually get items into the mill so we can feed them in. But Councillor Hodgkinson, I'm going to hand over to you to open up on this item, and we take it forward from there.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Well, actually, I think the item I asked for was a two-pronged one, which was something about internal communications, which really I would describe as communications that are sent out to councillors. And the other aspect was about the access of our website by the public. So I'll start with the communications to councillors, and I've been concerned over the months that we seem to be getting documents sent to us in various formats and various styles, and I find this a bit confusing, and I think we've had an example this evening that certain documents haven't been available to us, and I think some of them are probably out there, but we didn't quite know where they were. I'm particularly unhappy myself about the links that come out to OneDrive and things in Teams, and I find that very confusing because they seem to be in different places in Teams, and I'm not quite sure where they go to. I find Teams a bit slow and cumbersome in terms of accessing documents. So I would like to propose that we are communicated by having emails with attachments, and that those ideally those attachments should be PDF files. So that is my proposal on that. And going on to the website, I find it very difficult to find a particular document when you're on the website. There's a search system, but that search system only works in the whole body of the documents. And once you go into a section such as ALP or VEM, then there isn't actually a search dialogue anymore. It's okay if you know what the name of the file is or what to search for, then you can find things. And the other thing is that you don't really know what documents are out there unless you've got some idea that they are out there. So you have to be able to search for something that you've got some knowledge of beforehand. I would like to see a system where most of the documents are to do with our meetings. I would like to see our documents in a calendar format where we have a list of all the meetings, and we can click on a meeting and then find all the documents pertaining to that meeting, whether it's a meeting that is yet to happen or a meeting that has happened in the past. And one particular document that I think I'm asked quite often by members of the public about is the document for the small grants, and I don't think that's very easy to find either. So I would like to propose that we have a review of our website in terms of its ease of use for the public and for councillors as well. So that's my bit.
Thank you. So I believe it's now open to comments and questions, and I believe our next two speakers are Councillor James and Councillor Hollis. So Jane and Jenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Hodgkinson's absolutely right. This evening has been an absolute perfect example of the issues that we are experiencing in terms of internal communications. And potentially, like most councillors, I kind of don't really care how I get the information, but can we just get it in the same way every time and be consistent in our delivery? And I think that is one of the biggest issues, that we are not consistent in our approach. We flick-flack, perhaps responsively, and I appreciate we've gone through a very big learning curve in terms of where we find ourselves now with COVID and remote access and that kind of thing. But we really can do better. We must do better. On the other side of things, in terms of external comms, we have a responsibility under the Local Government Transparency Code to have certain information and actually make it easy for people. And I completely agree that actually potentially it almost feels as though our website has gotten harder to use. And it's something that Within the Finance Committee, we had responsibility for overview of the transparency agenda and making sure that everything was getting out there. And it was working well. It wasn't perfect, but it was out there, and it seems to have lapsed. So I will take that back to the Finance Committee for their overview and make it an action point potentially that we need to readdress this, because it was a significant element that we had to approach. And it seems to be that effectively we did it well, it was rolling well, and we took our eye off the ball. And I'll be honest with you, I believe we have taken the eye off the ball, and it's something that we need to maintain. So that local government transparency code is key to our delivery and our communication, not just with ourselves, but with our public and with our residents. And that's the most important thing. So I take that on board, and we'll be taking the transparency and the publication aspect back to finance, where it sat previously. But I agree, our website needs to be so much better. It is so difficult to use. It is difficult to navigate. It is not intuitive. And yeah, let's do better. So if that's through them, through the marketing side of things, if the responsibility for the website sits there, wherever it sits, can we just get it done, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Just before I move to Jenny, myself as chair of VEM and David Brooks, the VEM officer, those of you you've seen in a minute, we brought forward a forward plan for the activities of VEM over the next 12 months, and scheduled into our November meeting is actually the website review. So myself and David have already started the conversation, and we're both viewing other examples of public authority websites to garner best practice. So we welcome feedback into that, but we're looking to take that to them at our November meeting anyway. So it is an issue that we're aware of, and work's underway. It's in an embryonic stage at the moment. Nonetheless, it's underway, and that'll be coming to them in November. Jenny.
Thank you. I did put a comment in the box, actually. I mean, I'm a proper lame person where computers and that are concerned. I haven't a clue which is, as long as I know on, off, rewind and fast forward, I'm fine with any technology. But I actually find it quite easy to get hold of the agendas and reports that are sent through. Maybe because that's the way my brain works, I don't know. It's not that complicated. But I will say about the our website, it could be a little bit more up to date and easier, because I can go on it for ages and ages, and I still don't find what I'm looking for. So yeah, I'll agree with the update. But personally, getting the reports and the agendas as I am, I'm finding it quite easy. But as I say, my brain's not as clever as you lot. Thank you.
I've got Councillor Jeremy next. Terry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of points, if I can. I'm at risk of doing that old, I remember when, but I do remember when I first joined the council. Absolutely everything was posted to us, every agenda, every set of minutes, every report. And I remember thinking how sort of paper heavy it was. And I think our postage bill at the time was about £4 a year, because everything was posted out. And then we moved towards everything being emailed, but when we arrived in the council chamber, hard copies were at everybody's desk for each meeting, ready for them. And then we moved on from that, and we introduced the sort of tablets and electronic. I don't have a problem receiving things electronically, and I don't think, to their credit, any of our town councillors do either. What I have an issue with is the lack of consistency. So sometimes I'm emailed with a Word attachment or a PDF attachment. Sometimes I'm sent a link to Microsoft Teams, where I have to then log out of one Microsoft account into the town council Microsoft account to access that document. And sometimes they're uploaded onto the system, as has been the case this evening, where the finance minutes were uploaded this morning, but I didn't know that, neither did anybody else. So we had no idea that they were there. So I just think if we had an adopted approach, basically it's about agreed procedures. because we as members need to be properly informed, and I would suggest at the moment we're not. It's incredibly difficult for me as a chair of a committee to have all of the papers in front of me. So in advance of amenities, I will sit down and download or print, if I can't download, the papers and the various reports. I mean, one meeting was 7 or 8 different documents. You can't flip between different screens, different attachments, different download processes. They all need to be the same. It's hard enough jumping between the different screens. So for me, it's about the consistency. I mean, if it's a platform I don't particularly like Teams, so be it, as long as I know where they are. So I do think we need some agreed procedures, partly for us, but then also partly for the public. So if I can't find where the documents are in cyberspace or anywhere else, how on earth can we expect members of the public to have a clue where they are, as Jane quite rightly points out. Amenities has got better, and I have been quite insistent with Ros and others about the need to upload reports that are in the public section of the meeting to the website in advance. Nobody's going to follow our meeting if they haven't got a clue what we're talking about, which is often in the reports. But then also people want to check back. And I would also add to that 2 other points about live streaming, if I can, about the general awareness. There was no, as I mentioned before, some people joined to this evening before we started live streaming. There was no link to the full council tonight. I had a member of the public text me and say, how do I watch the meeting tonight? I think there's about 6 people watching the meeting. So we need to be better at promoting people's opportunity to watch the meeting. And this is about the 4th meeting in a row where there's not been a single public question. And I would suggest that we're not doing enough to promote how the public can ask questions, because the public aren't engaging with us. And that's a concern. I mean, and I say this again, the town council is doing some really good work, the work that we were just talking about in relation to the river, and lots of other bits and pieces, the Guildhall restoration works, all of that sort of stuff. But we are not promoting it, and we're not engaging with people and communicating. And part of that is the openness and transparency of our meetings. So I entirely agree with Dave's points. One is around consistency for members and our ability to engage. But the wider point is about openness and transparency. I'll shut up now. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Brindle next. Sorry, Terry, I wasn't thanking you for shutting up. I was just saying thank you. Councillor Brindle, Mike.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. I do so much agree with what Councillor Hodgkins has raised, and Councillor James and Councillor Jeremy have added. Just one other point. There are concerns sometimes about the website being up to date, or rather not being up to date. To take one simple example, you really want to be able to see minutes when they come out and not sometime afterwards, and sometimes the future planning seems not to be there, so you can't look too far ahead. So I think I certainly support very heavily a review of the website and a concern about one simple, clear method for communicating. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to comment? So, Dave, I'm going to come back to you because you mentioned proposals. One was around the website, and the other was around how we receive information and reporting. On the website, Dave, are you satisfied that?
Yeah, I'll just come in. I mean, I'd just like to thank other members for perhaps clarifying some of the things that I put quite poorly, and I agree both with I agree with the points about consistency, and I think that's my main frustration. And thank you very much for the responses for those of you who are chairs of committees, and I feel content that if these things are going to be taken forward by the suitable committees, I wasn't quite sure which committees would be dealing with what actually, but it sounds like Jane and I can't remember who the other one was. Oh, it's yourself, isn't it, Mark, at VEM, are saying that they're going to be taking these things forward. So I'm content that that is a good way forward, and I'm not necessarily expecting my proposal to be seconded and voted on.
Yeah, I've got hands up from Councillor Brain. Roy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I must admit, I mean, what we've seen tonight and what we've heard is absolutely super, and I thank Councillor Hodgson for his comments of saying, you know, this is not something that we need to push and vote and do. It's great that we're going to have a look at it. I know we did look at a lot more training for the teams and bits and pieces to make it easier. So I think I'll get involved as personnel as well with what you're doing and Jane's doing. I think personnel can also look at what training we can do and find out if the trainers have a setup where, you know, they advise, you know, that this is the way you do it. You put it on Teams, but you notify people by email, and we have a process and a protocol that we all know how it works. So I think as personnel, we'll add that to the agenda and try and have a little look at that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any hands up, so Dave, I'm just confirming your content that you've got 3 chairs that have spoken. There were 4 actually.
I'm very happy with that situation, Mr. Mayor, and I think if the committees take that forward, and I'd be happy to. I'm not on those committees, but I'm happy to come along to those committees if that would be required. That'd be useful. That'd be useful, and particularly on the website, because that's our public virtual face. As I've already indicated, both myself and David are working on this, on bringing a paper forward at November's Ben. But right. We welcome the input, because we all use IT in different ways, and so we welcome the input from everybody. Yeah. Okay, including family and friends, because at the end of the day, it's got to be a very user-friendly to our public. So thank you for that, Dave. Okay, thank you. That was useful. So we move on to item 327/20, which is community engagement. And that's to discuss and agree any consultation or media releases required. Do I have any suggestions for that item, colleagues?
Mr. Mayor, perhaps we ought to put something on the website saying that we're going to look at the website, or just as a thought.
Thank you, Thank you, Councillor Pro. Is there anything from anybody else, please? Dave, you have your hands up? Yes. It's just that Stuart mentioned something about some signage about the breach, and wonder if we should put something out about that, explaining why it's there and asking people to respect it. Thoughts, colleagues? I have an agree from Councillor James. Councillor Wright's got his hands up.
Yeah, thanks for reminding that, Dave. I think a laminated sign down there to explain, and a little bit of Facebook media out there to explain the situation might help. Thank you.
Thank you. And several, I can see Councillors Jeremy, Harvey and Barretto have all agreed as well. So I think we've got our route there. Thank you. Right, item 328/20, which is the exclusion of press and public. And this is to consider resolving that pursuant to the Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, the press and public be excluded for any remaining items of business on the grounds that publicity will be prejudicial to the public interest by reasons of the confidential nature of the business to be discussed. So I thank members of the public for joining us. And Joe, can you now close the live stream, please?